Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Fighter's Block. I am your host, Jesse Rivas, and I'm being brought to you. I'm bringing my partner in crime, my oos from my WWE fans, which is brother and Samoan, Mr. Joe Kilpin. Say hello, Joe.
Well, Samoan man on the podcast. How you doing today, Jesse? I'm doing well. How you doing?
Oos.
Oos. How you doing?
So I watched Royal Rumble. All of a sudden, I'm a wrestling fan again. Like I'm all in. Exciting.
Man, Royal Rumble was good, right? We don't have to break it down, but I had fun watching it. I thought there was a bunch of good shit.
I was amazed at how much hate Bad Bunny got for performing at the Royal Rumble. Did you see all the backlash on Twitter?
No, but I know nothing about Bad Bunny came on. I think I went in the other room. I barely know who that guy is. He's a musician, right?
Yeah, so he's the #1 artist in the world according to statistics like downloads and revenue generation and buys, but he sings in Spanish.
Dope.
So most of the English-speaking audience there has never heard who he is. So the fact that he's there and he's singing a song about Booker T, and they recognized him, they accurately recognized him as the #1 artist in the world. But if someone tells you that's the #1 guy in the world and you never heard of him, I can see why a couple people got ticked off.
Yeah, I mean, it's and I feel like Americans don't like to think about somebody being #1 who is not front and center in America. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So there might have been some what the fuck do you mean? I've never even heard of this guy, and he's #1. Some backlash and frustration around that. Man, good for him. Shitty name, bad name. I mean, it's not holding him back clearly, but the name sucks.
Yeah, he's crushed it. He's done the Super Bowl, most downloads in Spotify, most plays in Spotify, the WWE Royal Rumble. I'm not the biggest fan of his music. Call me a sellout, but I'm not the biggest fan. But I respect game. Whatever he's doing is working.
Sell out to the white people? What are you selling out to?
Huh?
Sell out to white folks?
I don't know. Everyone's
call me a race trader, but I don't like this musician. Man, I haven't heard that shit since Selena was the last time I heard
Selena.
Yo, you don't like her? Are you not Spanish? It's been a long time since that. Even fucking Despacito, people were like, yeah, I get it. All right, it's not for everybody.
Yeah. Man,
we have fighting to talk about.
You said what?
Do we have any fighting to talk about?
We do have fighting to talk about. We can recap what happened this past week. Now, you made a very accurate prediction. You said on this podcast last week, I asked you what's going to happen in the super middleweight fight between the Calebs, Caleb Plant versus Caleb Truax. The fight, I don't think anyone's been waiting for, but they clashed, and you accurately said, who the fuck cares? He's going to beat the shit out of him, and Caleb will win. Well, you were correct. One of the Calebs won, and it was the one you predicted, Caleb Plant.
It was the one I predicted. I actually feel like my prediction was a little off because he didn't beat the shit out of him. He beat him up. Maybe I'm splitting hairs here, but you wouldn't look at that fight and say Truax got a whooping or a beating. He got a boxing lesson. I think that's fair to say. He didn't win a round. But man, whether it was, there's talk of a hand injury or there's talk of, Plant's just got a very defensive style. It was a very uninspired performance. And what made me even madder, because we knew coming in that Caleb Plant was going to be.
How fun his girl is? Yeah, it made me upset too. She's so Caleb Plant.
She's bad.
Kudos to Caleb.
She's bad. I don't dispute that. But here's what I do dispute. He comes in. We knew he might have a defensive first style. That's fine. That happens. People win world championships like that. He won a world championship like that. He's a world champion. He's defending his title. But to be a guy who makes your claim as somebody who's good at talking shit, and then to afterwards talk no shit when you have the biggest pay-per-view star in the division looking for title fights in your weight class and you have a fucking title, that's a huge missed opportunity. Am I wrong, Jesse?
Yeah, and not only is he in your division, but he called you out. He wants to fight you.
He's watching. Hold up your belt. Say, this is mine. This is my weight class. And you're not going to take this from me. That's all they need. That's all they need. Mm-hmm. They don't need, because they need enough audio for a fucking commercial.
I will say this, though. I am wondering if his team told him not to do it on purpose, because who has been talking trash is Benavidez. Benavidez has come out. David Benavidez, the former youngest champion in boxing, with one of the sickest combinations that we've ever seen to win the world title, called out Caleb Plant and said, hey, me and you, we got the same promoter. We fight on the same TV channel. Let's make it happen. And he's been loud and trying to make the fight happen. So I think that may have something to do with why he didn't call out Canelo.
Would you really want a Benavidez over a Canelo, though? Does that make dollars and cents? Why would you not be chasing the Canelo fight, Jesse? Because he thinks he can beat Benavidez is the thinking, and he probably feels worse about his Canelo chances?
I think the layoff that Caleb Plant has had is part of the reason why we got a Caleb Truax fight. I feel like he's trying not to do what Conor did. And I feel like a lot of fighters are going to try to not repeat Conor's mistake of coming after these big layoffs and taking these big fights and then suffering losses. And these people don't have Caleb Plant doesn't have the selling ability of a Conor McGregor, where whether he wins or loses, he can still make money. So let's go ahead and build you up slowly. We get the Caleb Truax first. We get the Benavidez next. And then
we're saying this like David Benavidez is a guaranteed win. He's
a bad
putting Truax in the same conversation is not even respectful, right? Like, you have such a good shot. That's a 50-50 fight, in my opinion, just off the top of my head, Benavidez and Plant. Honestly, maybe 55-45 towards Benavidez, depending on where he's at. So we're going to go into a fight where at best we're at 50-50 odds, and we might fuck up an even bigger payday. Go take your cash, in my opinion.
That's a long list for Canelo, though. I mean, he already has the Billy. So this is Canelo's signed fights, or at least scheduled fights so far. So in February, this month, he will be fighting against Abney Yildirim, his mandatory. Then in May, he's fighting against Billy Joe Saunders. And he's got maybe 2 other fights for the year, assuming no injuries.
One more. He's going to do one more. He'll do, what's it called?
Independence Day on September 15th.
Mexican Independence Day, September 15th weekend, whatever that Saturday is. Canelo will box. Man, potentially Caleb Plant. You know what I mean? It could have been.
And Caleb Plant.
The white Caleb Plant. We could have had it.
That'd be great. This girl is so good. She's a great newscaster. She asks all the right questions. She's really good on the microphone. She should come in there like as his Queen Charmel. Like, she should come in there as like his talking piece that comes in quiet. What was that?
Is Maurice to the Miz.
Yes.
It makes it work. At least for the Miz, it always made it work to have Maurice there, because it was like, no, that's literally my Playboy model wife. That's literally, we go home and fuck. And so that means you have to respect me because I was able to land her. So something's going on here that you don't understand. There was always that feeling, wasn't there? With me, at least.
I don't know. I always felt like the Miz is like that corny dude who always got the hot girls.
You see what happened. Anyway, that's not how Caleb Plant got his girl.
That guy, like, he liked all the nerdy stuff you liked, except he got the hot girl somehow, and he was just always saying the worst jokes. That's who the Miz seems like. Could
be. Not how Caleb Plant got his girl.
No, he's a bad motherfucker. Not the jokey type. This is a
gooned his way to a dime piece for sure.
I feel like he's less of a trash talker and more of a stare you down till I melt you kind of person. Because what he did against Mike Lee, that was bullying without using words.
No, yeah, that was very much if Caleb wasn't boxing, Caleb would still be hitting people in the face. He's one of those.
100%.
Who's homeboy on suspension now, Kovalev, where they're like, yeah, it's good he's doing boxing, otherwise he'd be a hitman. Man, Caleb Plant's, he's not there, but he's not a million miles off. And to me, it's just a night of missed opportunities, and fucking whoever put this card on ESPN to get watched by people with no undercard, weak undercard. All due respect to all the guys who were on it, but can you tell me anybody who was on it? We didn't talk about any of these fights, and we were looking for fights to talk about. And we just couldn't find anything where we were like, let's go.
Did you happen to hear the commentary where it just seemed like, man, if I didn't have to pay a mortgage, I wouldn't be here right now?
So that's them saying like, hey guys, our job might seem cool, but sometimes you got to sit here through this bullshit for hours and hours and hours. No, it was like the cards they were putting on at the very beginning of the pandemic that were like, obviously they were just getting something, together. It was like the scraps they had in the fucking left over from whatever was going on. That's what this felt like. And it wasn't a good look for ESPN boxing. I guess that's PBC. It sucked.
It was PBC. The only thing that really had any noise from ESPN this weekend is Stephen A. Smith speaking up against a female MMA. Did you happen to catch this?
I read what he said. Please enlighten me if there's any further context here.
That's basically it. It was just a very old school mentality about, I love combat sports, but when I think of combat sports, I don't want to see women do it. I don't want to see females fighting. And he went on this old rant. But I feel like we're like in a different world now where, we had a female Royal Rumble. We've had Ronda Rousey.
What was the fight of the year last year?
The fight of the year last year in MMA was 2 women. Generally considered the fight of the year was Zhang Weili versus Joanna Champion, Joanna Violence. And that's what we brought. That's what we had.
Man, I read what he said. He did preface it with enough like, this is just my opinion. I'm only speaking for, that's it. ESPN has really drilled that into him. Anytime you're going to bring up one of these Steve Harvey ass opinions, please make sure people know it's just you.
Steve Harvey ass opinions.
That's what they are, right? Steve Harvey has opinions.
I don't know when he's playing a gimmick because I feel like he is playing a gimmick. I feel like he's playing a character half the time, Stephen A.
Maybe, but at the end of the day, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If that's your pedestal and that's what you're using it for, that's who you are. Well, he's doing it for money. Well, then he's being himself for money. I don't know what to tell you. I think it really wasn't like the biggest deal. People shouldn't like spend their time getting mad at him. But yeah, it's an old mindset. It sucks. It's he doesn't want to, because he starts talking about, I don't want to watch a woman in a cage fight with a man or any combat sport with a man. It's like, nobody's fucking talking about that. Anytime people start inventing shit to get mad at, that's when you can just tune that radio out. You know what I mean? And that's what I kind of did.
It's been a year since he called Donald Cerrone a quitter.
Yep.
And, I feel like he just saw that in his timeline and he's like, how can I piss off people on the internet again? It's been a year. Let's see what else I could say.
I'm sure he just has like a natural instinct. It's like fish swimming upstream to go breed or something. You know what I mean? Like something clicks up there. He's like, end of January, time to say it.
Man. We also have some interesting news, and I feel like you're going to have very strong feelings about this next news story. So Charles Oliveira turned down an eliminator fight with Michael Chandler. How do you feel about this?
He sure did. Well, let's be clear about the circumstances. They wanted him to take it at UFC 258, which I don't know if you've checked the calendar, Jesse, is in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So should he have taken that fight?
No.
On 2 weeks' notice for a spot he's by everybody's account he's already earned. The guys in the locker room are saying it's coming forward to be like, oh, it should clearly be Charles Oliveira and Dustin. Fucking, everybody in that division, up and down, everybody who's nearby in weight class. You ask any of these fighters, men, who should be the lightweight champion? Everybody says it should be Dustin or it should be Dustin versus Charles. No, he shouldn't have. He should have in a million years. And this is not shitting on Michael Chandler, but Michael Chandler is probably I don't even know if his next fight should be an eliminator fight, to be honest. Has he put in the same time that a lot of these guys have, proving it against the best guys? He knocked out Hooker. That's amazing. Maybe a title eliminator against like Gaethje is the right move. But Charles Oliveira needs to be fighting Dustin Poirier for the title. Anything else at this point is it's haram, Jesse, and I won't stand for it.
I had originally read this. I didn't know they were making him fight in like less than 14 days.
2 weeks, dog. How's he even going to make the weight? And be ready. He did. What was that? When did he fight Tony? Middle of December. It's end of January. What, you think in 6 weeks he hasn't blown back up? How long do people think Dustin Poirier enters the cage? 40 pounds heavier than he weighed in at. Charles Oliveira is supposed to keep weight for 6 weeks just because? No, it's bullshit. This is what Pride used to do. Mm-hmm. When they had a guy who they really wanted to win, they would tell him 3 months in advance, hey, you got a fight coming up. They would hit up an American 10 days before. Hey, man, can you make it over to Japan real quick? And then, so the fight isn't fixed, but it's heavily favoring. You know what I mean? Like one guy's all, and this wasn't like injury replacement shit. This was just their plan. This was just them fucking with it. I have that on a direct authority from somebody who fought in Pride.
Yeah. And you know what? I like when they sometimes are open with it, because if you ask Mayweather, he's like, yeah, why would I not make the fight in my favor? Why? Like, I bring in all the money. But in Japan, it wasn't necessarily the case. In Japan, it was just like, we just want to promote these people.
Yeah, we see star power in these guys, and we're going to push those guys. And I think that's what Dana sees. I think Dana, in a lot of ways, probably would prefer a Michael Chandler.
Dana jacked off to Michael Chandler doing that backflip. As much as he said he didn't.
He would subscribe to a Mike Chandler OnlyFans if it were an option.
Ooh,
maybe that's why he pays people low.
What was that?
Maybe that's why he doesn't pay people, so he can get them to do OnlyFans, so he can jack off to their gay pornography.
Do you know what the first thing Dana White did after Michael Chandler's victory?
Excused himself to the bathroom. What do you do?
He went to his Instagram page and added him.
That's serious. That's when you're feeling it.
To be fair, that's the first thing Michael Chandler said when he jumped off the cage. He was like, "Add me on Instagram," and then he was like, "But still, that's the first thing."
Get your priorities in order. That's what I would have yelled back. There's other things to consider right now for your future. That's so funny. That's what these grown men who are cage fighting, like the baddest motherfuckers on the planet, even they are like sitting around like, he doesn't even follow me on Instagram. I'm gonna tell him. We're in a fight. He doesn't know it. We're in a fight. That's so funny.
So one fight didn't happen to one fight that's gonna happen. We finally have the date for Jose Ramirez versus Josh Taylor. It's gonna be March 8th for the now overshadowed but unified 140-pound junior welterweight title. This is basically two guys saying, hey, come on, Teofimo Lopez, come get these belts. How do you like this fight?
You're not wrong. I love this fight. I think this is the fight that nobody's talking about in boxing, including us on this podcast, unfortunately. But these guys, they haven't been in big fights recently, so it's a little tough. Josh Taylor's last outing, he knocked somebody out with a body. The first body shot he threw, the guy fell down and started walking to the back.
I picked that guy to win.
What?
I said I picked that guy to win. I was like, hey man, this guy's undefeated. He's won all his fights by knockout. You're like, but he's fought no one. But you don't know about these guys from these third world countries.
Taylor beat Rougarou. Josh Taylor's really good. Taylor's on my pound for pound.
He's an underrated boxer.
Man, and Ramirez, amazing boxer and super tough himself.
The most underrated boxer.
Yeah. Both these guys are amazing. I'm super excited for this fight, and it's a great thing. We're seeing unifications. We're seeing champions who want to take the Pepsi challenge. And it's crazy. I'm seeing this in other sports. Jiu-jitsu, I'm seeing this. Wrestling, I'm seeing this. I'm following, all these combat sports I'm following. Something about COVID has made people be like, yeah, fuck this drama. Let's just go, chase legacy.
But definitely, I'm assuming that the winner of this is going to call out the oversized Teofimo Lopez to come to his accurate weight class, because he wants that fight. Dave said it. And speaking of Teofimo Lopez, he's got a few fights left at lightweight. And it looks like it's now more likely that he's going to fight Devin Haney next, as opposed to the George Kambosos Jr. fight that we all were unenthused about. We knew he was going to be
resigning ourselves towards. We were already looking forward to the Kambosos fight. Like, wow, and it'll be in front of a crowd. That's cool. Like, just appreciating like the smallest comfort of it. Man, I didn't realize that I heard they were putting together the Haney fight. I didn't realize that was in place of the Kambosos fight. That's great news.
Yeah, he's the leading candidate.
So that to me says he knows he's got no time at this weight class. And he is just going to try to get scalps up on the shelf before he gets the fuck out of there. He might have to, for all we know, that's going to be his last fight at lightweight before he moves up.
Right.
Could be. Man, Haney's one that he could go out on for sure. Way more than if he was going to take more fights. I was a little surprised he didn't move up after he beat Loma, to be honest. You know what I mean? If you're going to leave on a win, that's a great one. But now he wants to defend his unified championship. Man, Haney's a great one for that. I love that fight.
Let's see what we have next. Oh, speaking of the
You
weight
love that
class,
fight, right? I mean, tell me, Haney and Teofimo. From the outside looking in, let's think about it for a second. Who are you favoring early on? Super far out.
I would have to go with I got to give it to Teofimo Lopez just because of past people he's fought, but I've always heard of the potential of Devin Haney. But Devin Haney didn't look that good against Yorikis Gamboa. Gamboa was a smaller, older fighter.
Not great. I agree. You can definitely understand why Teofimo will be the betting favorite when lines close and all that. He's going to look coming in like everybody's going to pick him, but everybody will say the same thing. Wow, tough fight, great fight. Lopez by close decision. Or people do that bullshit where they're like, I predict a split decision because I predict one ref is going to be in the bathroom for 4 rounds or whatever. You know what I mean? I fucking hate when people.
The 4 kings fighting each other is what it is. It's the beginning of the round robin.
The short kings.
I'm excited about it.
The 4 short kings of boxing.
The 4 short kings thing. And we also have another one of the 4 kings. It looks like they've cooled down the highly promoted Ryan Garcia versus Manny Pacquiao fight. He promoted it on his social media. It blew up. It took over, and they're saying they're cooling down on those negotiations.
Meaning that it's becoming less and less likely that the fight.
Less and less likely.
Man, I feel like that was an undisciplined move from Ryan. From what I understand, listening to the people who are kind of like more familiar with the situation, listening to them talk about it, it kind of sounds like he fucked up and he like jumped the gun on that. They're like, hey, man, we have him at the table. This is starting to look pretty good. And then he, was like, the fight's on. It's going to happen. That's immaturity in the game. That's immaturity on the business side because he probably fucked his money. If that's true, he might have really fucked his money up on that one. Because you get a Manny Pacquiao fight. That's big money for a kid like that.
Money. But so would have been the Gervonta Davis fight.
Factual. And now, but it looks like he pissed that off too. You know what I mean? He pissed off Gervonta and sent Gervonta looking for another fight, which he'll probably take. Manny, now those negotiations are cooling down. He's going to fucking end up, with some lower rank guy that he's just got a stunt on again if he's not careful.
Yeah, I think the best if you're managing Ryan Garcia is don't tell him about the fights till they're signed.
I think that's a great point. Man, seriously. And straight up, man, it's going to sell. Don't worry about that. You don't have to get him that on board. Talk to Reynoso. Talk to, the head of Twitter or the head of TikTok or whatever. But you don't need to really hit up Ryan too much. Hey, champ, you feeling good? Great. We're going to talk to you again soon. That's all you need.
Don't be like, hey, we just negotiated Pacquiao. It's not signed yet. Don't say anything on social media. What
is the best he can possibly do to help? There's nothing. And he's the kid's a great boxer. The kid, his hand speed, all that. His win against Luke Campbell was an unbelievable fight, actually.
He's got Gatorade. He's got Gatorade money.
Bro, he's making all types of money. He's dumb as a post. Let's be honest. And he'll do whatever. The kid will do whatever you tell him for the most part. That's what athletes are really the best for, right? They're good. They're coachable, ideally. You can't coach him to move his fucking head and feet for some reason, but he's coachable. Man, fucking, you don't need to just tell him, show up at this time at this weight class, and he'll be good. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
By the way, did you see Broner this week? Do you have another topic? Can I throw in one real quick?
Yeah, throw in one, 100%.
Broner going off about like, why do people? I'm only early 30s. Why do people think I'm all past my prime? Because you were just like 600 pounds. Because we've been paying attention. You were just in jail and like weight, twice your fucking weight. That's why Adrian Broner. Did you hear this? Did you see this?
2 questions when he was in court. 2 questions for him to sell out all his friends. They asked him, Broner, how come you have money and you can't afford to pay us back? Well, I got friends. Who are your friends? I know people. Who are these people? The head of Showtime, Weather. Like he just immediately started naming all the people who gave him money. I'm like, all right, man, these people gave you hundreds of thousands of dollars, which means they have to pay a gift tax for giving you hundreds of thousands of dollars that you were supposed to keep under wraps. Completely sold them out in court, and you still can't pay back all your expenses. It's just, He's just
He's
not
a
the best.
fucking idiot. He's a fucking idiot. Because he's taking it like, well, why wouldn't people believe in me? When he should be saying, it's okay that you don't believe in me. I'm going to overcome that. You know what I mean? That should be his angle. This is my redemption, not, hey, y'all forgot I've been here the whole time. No, you have not. I've been following boxing. It's been a long time since we've had a big Adrian Broner fight, and so I thought that was very weird this week. I heard that come up.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like, I don't know, the fact to be 31 and already like burnt out, it's crazy. I don't think there's anything that could have been done because I feel like watching his career, we all kind of predicted it pretty early. Like as soon as you saw his rise, you're like, how long is this gonna last?
Man, there's guys that are like that, right? Where you see that the support system isn't there. And is there anybody like that comes to mind in boxing at this very second?
No, actually, I can't think of anybody.
Because even like the ones who were fucking up like Fury and shit. Oh, Deontay.
But that's like recent though. He was focused for a long time, then he lost, and like he's gone off the deep end.
You're right. I realize it's tough to see who it is because like I said, even those guys who were fucking up like Fury or somebody, they've righted it. You know what I mean? They corrected a ton of problems. So I feel like boxing is also in kind of a mature place where it's like, where are the fuck ups? Maybe it's Ryan Garcia is the answer. But even that, like, I could see it, but I don't predict it. You know what I mean? I do feel like he can figure it out. I don't feel like I did with Adrian. With Adrian, it's like,
I don't think it's Deontay. Deontay hasn't been that person historically, but since his loss, he's not been giving me the good vibes. So I can't even call him that.
Yeah, it's not Deontay. Maybe Garcia. I'm gonna do some research here for a second. Maybe we can circle back to it.
Adrian Broner was throwing money down the toilet and flushing it when he had money. He was forcing himself and assaulting women at bars. He was a mess. I would say Gervonta maybe. Gervonta's had some.
Gervonta, yeah. You look at Gervonta, and it's a lot of very similar Mayweather-ish stuff, or not Mayweather. Well, there's the Mayweather connection, but there's a lot of similar Broner stuff. Because, man, anytime there's a video of you pulling a woman out of a fucking place by her neck, it sure does feel like shit's off the rails.
Yeah, I would say that would probably be the closest. Man, so Manny Pacquiao no longer the champion. He's been called the champion in recess. Now we have Ugas as the new champion, which I feel like is a political move because they're trying to make Ugas versus Spence because Spence does not want Crawford, and that's the next hardest fight. But I don't think that's an easy fight at all.
Sorry, I was trying to think of who else. David Benavidez is another one where I feel like he just fucks up.
Oh, yeah, Benavidez is also has some questionable stuff. He's amazing in the ring, man. It's something about when these guys get too much attention and too much shine when they're young. It feels like it's easy. And then I feel that has a lot to do with the fact that they start doing all this other stuff. Like John Jones. John Jones was in the UFC after 9 months of doing MMA. He became the greatest of all time. He was never known as a partier or someone who was doing anything crazy. But when you dominate your sport at that young of age, he started doing coke, started like crashing into pregnant women and breaking their arms and just all kinds of crazy stuff.
I actually know someone who knew John growing up a little bit, or they were both from Endicott. And he did tell some stories of like, yeah, John had a streak in him. You know what I mean? It wasn't totally out of nowhere but you get that much money and you get that much lack of accountability in your life. I mean, you know.
See, the way I read it just from the headlines, where the night that he won the UFC title, he stopped an armed robbery like a superhero in the night, just came in there and was the ultimate hero. And then when we saw this other streak, it was like, which John Jones is this? Did I live long enough to see the hero become the villain?
Unbelievable. And I still think my greatest MMA prediction of all time, it didn't happen on this show, but it was unbelievable that I predicted it. The night before he got in that first car crash with where he hit the pregnant woman, I said to a bunch of guys, John Jones is going to get in a car crash really soon or something. So I swear to God, by then we knew something was up because I knew.
He had this great streak of being able to call the most unlikely scenarios that end up happening.
The trick is constantly be predicting bullshit and then be right 0.01% of the time. You mentioned that Manny Pacquiao is no longer champion, Jesse.
Yes.
And that the title has gone to Ugas, and now it looks like Ugas is going to fight Errol Spence. Is that what we're saying?
I think that's a great fight. I think people
That's a beautiful fight.
Yes.
That's a great fight. Ugas is a bad motherfucker, and now he's a world champion. But is he a world champion? It feels iffy to say that on, like, not gifting him the belt, but it is weird. You know what I mean?
I feel like it was a political move. I feel like they felt, okay, if Pacquiao's going to go to 140 to fight against Ryan Garcia, he's not going to need this belt. Meanwhile, Ugas, we're trying to get a fight against Spence. And what reason do we have to promote Spence versus Ugas unless it's a unification fight?
I think it makes a ton of fight. I think it makes a ton of fight sense. I think it'll make money. Spence has had really good. His last fight came in with a really good pay-per-view number, which is good news for him. And it's a super tough test. And Ugas, we've been saying since he fought Sean Porter, man, this guy is one of the best in the world, and he can make a tough fight out of anybody. And if the problem in the last fight was that Danny Garcia looked a little hesitant to get in there and really exchange for whatever reason, Ugas, we expect, will be less so. Ugas is really aggressive. Ugas really got in there with Sean Porter and was backing up Sean Porter for large periods of that fight. So we should expect, for any possible lingering doubt that it still exists with Errol Spence's condition, he's going to answer those questions when he fights Ugas. I don't know if he'll successfully answer them, but we're going to get answers.
Yeah. Bold prediction, I got Ugas by upset.
Bro, it could happen. I'm sitting here trying to put that together for people. Like, this is a fucking fight. This is a real thing. Ugas has a style that Spence has struggled with at times, and Ugas is crazy underrated. This is a real world title fight.
People don't follow Ugas. People don't follow Cuban boxers for whatever reason. They're some of the best boxers in the world historically, going all the way back to the 70s. But they don't follow Cuban boxers the way they follow a Yoel Romero, a Jorge Masvidal in MMA, or a Valerie Laredo. What do you think it is about Cubans and MMA that they've been able to break through so much, but not in boxing?
Boy, that's a great question. I think part of it is the team that they're in gives them down there in Florida a lot of access to media and things like that. Mm-hmm. I feel like certainly when it comes to Masvidal is his own thing because, he was born in Florida, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a different situation being, Cuban by heritage and by or being Cuban by birth and by nationality like Yoel Romero is. Mm-hmm. That's super different. I don't know why they haven't really caught on. It's a much more boring style, right? It's a much more boring style that the Cubans tend to play. Ugas, I would say, is not super typical of the Cuban style. He's a little bit different. He's kind of on the other side of that, actually. Because usually, it's like really defensive masterminds who can stay safe while picking you apart with strong amateur fundamentals, which might win world championships, but they don't win many fans. On top of that, they just tend to not be very good in interviews. And in boxing with the Ali Act, you need to sell yourself more. The UFC isn't there as a machine to sell you for yourself. You need to be the one doing that so much more.
I can't remember which Mexican boxer it was, but his translator used to hype him up so much. They would ask him, they said, what do you think of your opponent? Well, I think he's a very strong fighter. I think he's doing well. Then his interviewer say, I knew I could dominate him. These lightweights can't handle my strength. I'm like, he didn't say any of that. That was the translation the fighter said at all. So
he says he's going to knock him out, pull his shorts down, and fuck his butt cheeks. That's what he said. I don't know what to.
Man, so we have a great card coming up this week. It's not a great card, but there's a lot of fun fights on here. It's one of these sleeper MMA cards where if there's nothing going on, watch it. But if you watch it, I'm sure you're going to be very, very happy with what you see. The main event starts off with Alistair Overeem, the guy who has 9 lives in MMA, I swear. Every time we think he's done, he always makes his way back up to the championship picture against Alexander Volkov, one of the biggest standouts coming out of Bellator. A lot of attention from him outside of the UFC, but he's had kind of a underwhelming UFC performance. We could always see the skill of a world champion, but will he accomplish his potential? How do you see this fight?
Boy, this one, I've been going back and forth in my mind on this one for about a week now as I've been trying to break it down. So Overeem has moved to definitely a lot more clinch. He used to be kind of on when he came into the UFC, he was all bazooka, right? Mm-hmm. Anthony Joshua style, juggernaut, come forward, throw these shots, maybe a tie clinch, but usually just, rushing these dudes and landing shots that they couldn't handle. And it worked really well, brought him all the way to a UFC title shot. Then we kind of saw him start to play from the outside a lot more. And we start to see him be a little craftier, which was interesting to see. But he also got knocked out a ton. Now he's very clinch and ground and pound heavy. Mm-hmm. And so I'm finding this evolution really interesting in Alistair Overeem. The way that he continues to not even do things that he wasn't doing before, but like mixing it in different ways. You know what I mean? He's adding and subtracting focuses over time. And I think it's been really, really neat to watch. Since he lost to Curtis Blade.
Let's take a step back before we get off of Alistair. For some of the boxing fans that are joining us for the first time on MMA Conversation, could you walk us through who is Alistair Overeem? What does he mean to MMA?
So Alistair Overeem is an old school veteran at this point. This dude was fighting I think his first fight was in the 2000s. This dude was fighting back in the Rings organization,
97.
Which is like saying you fought on a card with like Sugar Ray Robinson. You know what I mean? Like that thing was fucking you can't even find footage of this. It was so old. This was early days, buddy. And he's got his kind of rookie start in that, and he ended up fighting in Pride for a really long time. He was an impressive light heavyweight at 205.
Which used to be the biggest promotion in the world, even higher than the UFC in the early 2000s.
Dutch guy, decent striker, tricky on the ground, really good guillotine choke. He has really long, kind of gangly limbs that he was good with, but man, he caught knockouts pretty consistently. The chin was out there and people took it. He caught a lot of knockouts.
At his best, he is the most accomplished or one of the most accomplished strikers in all of MMA. He is the K1 World Grand Prix champion, which is the kickboxing championship, the most acclaimed kickboxing championship of his era. He was also a champion at Strikeforce, which was the number 2 league. I
was getting to all that. I'm taking people through a journey, Jesse. You asked me to explain who the guy is. I can't fucking boil that. He's a really big striker. He took a bunch of steroids, and now he just ground and pound because he's gotten knocked out a lot. There you go.
Brock Lesnar.
If you want it quick, I could have done it quick.
Interesting was the psychology of how he got into MMA. Do you know how he got into MMA? His parents got divorced. Apparently, his mom is hot. And all these dudes kept being like all pushy up on his mom and stuff. So him and his brother took up martial arts to be able to defend their mom.
From fucking? What, you gotta fucking
like shitty dudes. Like dudes can't.
Okay, no, I see the that does sound like a little kid idea though.
I can only imagine, like, does he still view some of these like creepy dudes in his neighborhood when he head kicks people's heads off?
He very well could. So yeah, Overeem, he's got to be at the end of his rope. He has said if he wants to win the title, he's making his one last run at the title. And if he were to win it, he would retire the very next day. That to me says if he loses any fight, he's retiring, right? Yeah. If he, the next match he loses, he's probably going to retire. And that very well could be this one. He's fighting Volkov, super tough, 6'7", 6'8" Russian, kickboxing background with a very active guard who has made a lot of guys look bad. And the only times he's lost in the UFC is when he's been taken down repeatedly, which Overeem might try to do. Or when Derek Lewis caught him with a big crazy shot and knocked him out with 10 seconds left in a fight he had dominated up to that point. So you could say that he should have won that fight. You can make that argument that he showed the better skills overall, but then he just got hit with that eraser by Derek Lewis, MMA's Deontay. On the other hand, Overeem, it has been a while since he got knocked out. He lost to Rosenstruik, but in a similar fashion to Volkov, he probably should have won the Rosenstruik fight, I argue. He got stopped with a TKO with 7 seconds left or something like that, off of basically what looked like a really badly cut lip. But there's 7 fucking seconds left. He can jab out and run. And for a guy that runs around the cage a lot like Overeem does, we could have waited another 7 seconds. Over the course of the 24 and a half minutes, he had done a lot to win the fight. It didn't feel like it should come down to that one big glancing looping shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was a real disappointment.
Taylor versus Julio Cesar Chavez, where you know who's winning the fight. They just have to end the fight, but a stoppage changed history. Man.
It very much did.
I just remember that returning to the UFC on this pay-per-view will be former head referee of the UFC, Mario Yamasaki. Will he be reffing this main event?
He's not returning to the UFC this weekend.
Oh, it's not this weekend?
He's not returning to the UFC. He has no plans to return to the UFC right now.
Oh, okay.
He's returning to MMA. He's not returning to the UFC.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like, yeah, Bellator at PFL and shit.
Totally got that completely wrong. This will be edited out of the other version.
No, next time, read the article. Anyway, Jesse.
I read the clickbait and then I just move on.
No, because you read the meme that somebody made about the clickbait.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Jesse, we're going to find out something super important about Alistair Overeem that we have been trying to answer for years at this point. Years of our lives have been spent trying to figure out this question. It's Black History Month. We're going to finally find out if Alistair is black or not. Because he is, right? He's like this weird Dutch mix, but like, is he black?
Yeah, he's black.
Okay, we're going to find out. Black History Month, man. He's got to, you know. If the UFC, do you think the UFC puts up like a little thing about it?
Do I think they put up a little thing about it?
About Black History Month in general or Alistair? Where they support, where they say like, hey, Black History Month, that's A-okay with us. They did do it for Latin History Month or whatever, you know, Latin American.
Did they? Who did they highlight?
Ortega was on there. Kelvin Gastelum was on there. There was a bunch of guys.
I mean, they better do it. I mean, they've had. I mean, John Jones, Daniel Cormier, so many legends. Kevin Randleman, even at the beginning of the UFC, Maurice Smith, Dean Thomas. I could just go on with so many pioneers that were responsible for MMA what it is today, and so many of them that are major players today. They should definitely do something to recognize Black History Month.
Who do you think is going to win this weekend?
Who do I think is going to win this weekend? I think Alistair's going to win. I feel like Alexander always finds a way to lose the big fights. I don't know if it's a psychological thing or maybe it's like a state management thing. I feel like he needs like one of those like mental coaches because he looks great. He looks like a world champion 99% of the time I see him. But in the biggest fights in the UFC, like the Derek Lewis fight, he shouldn't have lost that fight. Who do you got in this fight?
You make a lot of really good points. I would say, all things considered, I am going to lean towards Alistair. But I also wonder how much of that is fondness of Alistair. And I wouldn't put money on this. I wouldn't put money on this. I really feel like, and I feel like if we see him lose, we could see the end of a legend.
Speaking of the end of a legend, the co-main event is one that's I feel like I might see the end of a legend. One guy who's dear to my heart. We're talking about Frankie Edgar versus Corey Sandhagen in the co-main event. Big fight. I'm so excited about this fight, but I hope that I get just one last good fight out of Frankie, and then I want him to walk out into the sunset.
Frankie, it's such a fascinating thing, right? Because Frankie's, you know, former 155-pound champion. Usually when we say a guy and he fought at 145 and now he's dropping down to 135 for his second fight, fought Pedro Munoz, had a fucking awesome fight. It was good shit all over. Usually when we look at a guy who's dropping down in weight, we say it's a desperation move, especially late in a career, right? Where you've taken some losses and you're looking for a fresh coat of paint and you get yourself down to a new weight class. Seen it a million times, right? Especially in the UFC, I feel like. But with Frankie, it's not quite that. Because he should have been here for a long, long time. You know what I mean? Like yeah. he should have been at bantamweight. So he's not changing his body to do this. He's just cutting weight like he knows how to anyway. And you know, there will be more restriction and all that, but I don't read it as the same kind of desperation and issues that he's had. Here's a problem. He is fighting a very good fighter, a dude who is very good at fighting, and that is Corey Sandhagen, who is coming off a fresh wheel kick knockout over Marlon Moraes.
Ooh, fight.
Absolutely. Has looked incredible in his UFC run. His only loss was to Aljamain Sterling, which was basically an eliminator fight. And he's generally considered a top 3 guy in the world right now. This would be the third division where Frankie Edgar has beaten a top 3 guy. He did it at 55, he did it at 45, and he did it at 135. And, now if he can. I don't know that anybody else has ever done that. I'm almost certain they haven't. What are you seeing it? Are you feeling it? Can he beat a 28-year-old top 3 in the world guy?
Wow. Frankie Edgar, one of the greatest 155-pound champions ever. His title defenses, I think 2 years in a row, got Fight of the Year candidates. His fights with Gray Maynard, if you haven't seen those fights, they are one of the best examples about mindset, what you could do if you put your mind to something, and resilience, how much you can overcome the impossible. They are just examples of why sometimes you got to let the fight go. You don't want the guy to get murdered, but at the same time, you want to give the guy an opportunity to come back. And when he pulled that comeback knockout against Gray Maynard, when he had gotten knocked down and it looked like he was about to get finished, and then came back to stop Gray Maynard, changed the way that a lot of refs react to the way someone is when they're being hurt. His move down when he moved down to featherweight to fight against Jose Aldo for the 145-pound championship, that was a great fight. The first fight was phenomenal. It was close. Going into the fight, it was 50-50. He did lose, but then he became the number 2 guy in the division who was just torching everyone. He was just scorching everyone, just dominating the division, had a phenomenal run there. And now just seeing the end of his career, I think, man, I just can't count Frankie out. I can't count him out. But Corey Sandhagen is a fighter in his prime. It's his moment. He's 28 years old. We've seen nothing but dominance. We've seen a few hiccups, but every time we see the hiccups, we see a better Corey Sandhagen. So I'm rooting for Frankie. I'm rooting for Frankie because we're the same height and weight. We have the same size arms. It always felt like I was watching myself do MMA. I was like, hell yeah, that would be me if I was in the cage. So
if I spent my whole life wrestling instead of doing karate and trying to get my dick sucked, I could be right there with that dude. Man, Frankie's one of the best of all time, right? Debuted, against Tyson Griffin way back in the day. I know you remember that.
Yeah.
Brought in to lose to Tyson Griffin, by the way, and to get highlight reeled in what ended up being maybe the fight of that year. That was one of the best fights of 2007 when that happened. He has put together just so many unbelievable moments.
The pound-for-pound king of the moment, which was BJ Penn, who nobody thought that anyone could dethrone BJ Penn at lightweight. He was invincible, and Frankie Edgar beat him twice.
That's why whenever, somebody's like, oh, well, Khabib could never get got. It's like, I heard that with BJ. And then somebody that nobody saw coming beat him twice over 3 times. And, shit, it'd be like that. MMA, shit happens. You're on top until you're not. Worst case scenario for Frankie, it kind of turns into a redux of the end of his 45 run, where he was losing to Ortega and he got KO'd by Korean Zombie in the first round. And it looked like his resilience was a little down from where it was. He wasn't able to make that crazy comeback like he used to be able to, because he would always get rocked.
I feel like was the end of his crazy comeback.
Say again.
I feel like the Ortega fight was the day that we all realized there's less of these crazy comebacks than there were 5 years ago.
Yeah, he can't run through the wall like he used to. I'm gonna pick Sandhagen. And I don't think it'll be the end of Frankie, but it will be a setback, a big one. Let's see. Maybe I'm wrong. He's fucking. If anybody has ever made a career out of proving people's fight picks wrong, it's Frankie Edgar.
Mm-hmm.
What else we got going on?
The division for the winner.
That's a great question because it depends on who wins this and it depends on who wins the title fight, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say Aljamain wins the title, and let's say Corey Sandhagen wins this fight. I don't think they'll do that rematch that quick because he ran through him in 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Got his back, choked him out in a way that's difficult to call fluky. And so I feel like they would have trouble promoting that fight. They would probably give it to somebody else. If Frankie were to win, I feel like they give him the shot, whoever. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They would love to get Frankie Edgar in a title fight. And if he beats Corey Sandhagen, he's probably earned it, to be honest.
Yeah.
If you're Frankie Edgar and you come down, you beat Pedro Munoz in a fight of the year contender, and you beat Corey Sandhagen in any kind of way, well, man, to me, that's as good an argument for a title shot as anybody has at 35, especially given the star power and the numbers it'll bring to that division. Always a good thing. Man, crazy. We could have had Frankie Edgar versus Cejudo. That would have been a good-ass fight. That would have been good. That's kind of one of those ones that we missed out on, isn't it? That kind of goes on the list of we never saw this fight, but what would it have looked like?
Honestly, I feel like Cejudo would have had his number, though.
I was going to go the other way. I was going to say Frankie can get it. Who knows? It would have been amazing. If Sandhagen wins and Petr Yan wins, I feel like Corey might get the title shot. They might give Corey to it might pair up Petr and Corey. But if Sandhagen wins here, he's got to be praying that Yan wins over Sterling.
I feel like Aljo right now is just too on fire.
Bro, he's incredible.
We've always known that he had this in him, and he's finally at that point where we're like, that. At least I'm looking at him like that's the guy. I think he's going to have a victory. Yeah.
This is it. This is the guy. He had a hybrid rules kind of, I guess, grappling match recently with a guy who's already said he's going into MMA. This college wrestler's already said he's going into MMA. He's got the biggest social media following of any college wrestler, I'm pretty sure. Roman Bravo Young of Penn State wrestles at 133. And they did 3 minutes freestyle wrestling and then 3 minutes submission grappling. Very friendly, very friendly. Just like, hey, I saw you're doing this. You want to get into MMA one day? Let's get together. Let's do some matches. Sandhagen and Roman Bravo Young is like top 3 or 4 in Division I in the country. He's unbelievable. Man, he was taking him down. He was scoring points on Roman. And he was like a D3 wrestler. Like, he should not be doing that. That doesn't happen. And so this guy's grappling, and then they did the grappling. He tapped him out in like a minute. He's on it right now.
Yeah.
Whatever his run is, he's probably on it right now. Unless he's in for one of these like Alistair Overeem careers where you just get to hit a million fucking respawns.
Man, it's funny. That's a similarity. If you want to say who a young Alistair Overeem is, I would say it's Alexander Volkov.
I can see that, right? Because he gives them away.
Yeah, he gives them the biggest fights.
Volkov is he's advanced from where a young Overeem was. You know what I mean? I would say.
Yeah.
Could be. Heavyweights don't age. So maybe Volkov is going to be here for the next 15 years.
Is there any other fight on this card that you want to go over?
Oh man, so there are some sneaky good ones here. If we can go over, we have to go long on them. Marion Reneau is fighting Macy Chiasson. That will be a really good one at women's 135. Chiasson, really good striker who I would expect to kind of take over here. Just stop me if I hit anything, right?
Okay.
Stop me if I hit anything good. Buddy, I'm pretty sure this card has, there it is. Michael Johnson versus Clay Guida's on this card.
Ooh,
that's a good dudes who are over the hill fight. Johnson maybe less so, but maybe not, right?
Johnson can crack.
Boy. But who can get cracked better than Clay Guida?
Yeah.
It's a fun-ass fight. It's one of those fights I almost can't believe has happened before. Jesse, there's a fight we very clearly have to talk about on this card, which is there's actually a lot of really good fights on this card, Jesse. Holy shit. Diego Ferreira is fighting Beneil Dariush this weekend. I thought that was on the pay-per-view.
That's a great fight.
That's top 10 in the world versus like top 12 in the world in Beneil Dariush. Two of the best jiu-jitsu black belts on the planet in MMA, right? At this weight class, you're not going to get better submission guys pretty much than these two. Charles Oliveira class right there with them. And these are guys who put together savage winning streaks in one of the toughest divisions in the world. Do you remember what fucking Diego Ferreira did in his last fight to Anthony Pettis? When he ran through him in 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
It made him look like he tapped him with a naked choke. He didn't even have the back hooks. He didn't have the legs in like he needed. He finished a bullshit choke and almost put Pettis to sleep. That's one of my most, that should have been the main event almost. Holy shit, that's a good fight. Jesse, I'm hearing a lot of great stuff out of this Manel Kape guy fighting Alejandro Pantoja at 125. In fact, I heard somebody say this guy could be the guy at 125. Somebody who I respect a lot. Yeah, coming out of Africa, looking like a real tough kid, 15-4. I don't know if it's his UFC debut. It is not his UFC. It is his UFC debut. And in his last 3 fights, he's had 3 knockouts, all with punches, including his last one was over Kai Asakura in Ryzen. And his one before that was over Takaya Mizugaki, who you know.
Hey, Google, stop. Sorry, my alarm was on.
This guy's knocking out Mizugaki. This guy's knocking out Kai Asakura, who's a title contender in 1 right now. This guy's got power. This guy can fight. This guy's, you know.
I love when like there's those hidden gems in the UFC, because you can get lost in the shuffle. But what about his opponent?
Sorry about that. His opponent, Alejandro Pantoja, is a violent, if not kind of up and down, 125-pounder. Great test. Came in, he has a win over Brandon Moreno, who just fought for the title. That should tell you the level that we're talking about Pantoja. He's a top 10 guy. He has wins over Wilson Hayes, who was a really big one, where he picked up the win. He strikes well, he uses his knees and his elbows well. He comes from a clinch Thai boxing background. These two, if they're going to have a striking battle, we could see something really great here at 125. Or it almost has vibes to me of when Thomas Almeida and Cody Garbrandt fought.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it was like, man, we got this really good Brazilian striker kid. Let's get him over. But then the other guy comes in with strong hands. So I'm really, really interested at this 125-pound fight.
I read that you said the fight wasn't going to last long. I could see that. I could see it being a very short fight based on both past experiences on fighters. I knew about Pantoja, but I didn't know about the other guy. So I look forward to seeing it.
For sure. We could talk about Cody Stamann versus Askar. Askar, tough fight, but Askar is a really late replacement, so it's almost like not fair. Cody it's like we talked about earlier, when one guy has all the time to prepare and the other guy doesn't, there's a big fucking advantage. And I think Askar is coming up from 125, actually. And I think he's taking the fight late notice up a weight class. So I would like Corey in that fight, although Askar is very talented. He's very talented.
Sounds good. I think it's going to be one of those sleeper UFC cards. You get those.
Bro, it is. This is a good-ass card. Jesse, this is a good-ass card. I could talk about Danilo Marquez and Mike Rodriguez at 205. I could talk about Timur Valiev here at 145. This is a good-ass card, dude. This is where the fuck was this on the Conor undercard? Ferreira and Dariush couldn't be moved up 2 weeks? They couldn't be moved up 2 weeks? I had to fucking watch middleweights who were both like a combined 1-11 in the UFC have an ugly fucking brawl, throwing left hooks from fucking behind their ass cheeks and shit. No, give me this violence. This is what I want to see.
All right, 1 to 10, right? 1 to 10. We're gonna go through those.
I'm at a full 7 inches. I'm at a full 7 inches right now. I'm not even 7 inches. It's amazing.
So Hape versus Pantoja, 1 to 10. How badly do we need to see this?
Oh man, so like we need to put. So what's like 10? Give me an example of a 10. Is 10 like Spence Crawford or Okay, so it's like a big fight.
Yeah.
Okay, if I'm going to call the main event of this.
No, you know what I think about? Joanna versus Young Whaley, like a fight of the year candidate. Because this isn't like a name fight. This is one of those fights you want to watch because it's aesthetically pleasing. Now, because it's a big name. So we're going to say Joanna versus Young Whaley.
Let me put it to you this way. This is my 4th most anticipated fight on the card. Only after the main event and the co-main event, where I want to see if these two dudes who I've been watching for decades retire, and or if they're going to get these amazing last, end of the run title shots. There's story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see Ferreira versus Dariush because of the weight class and because of the violence that those dudes bring every single time. And then right after that, and I'm not talking far after, right after that is these two dudes, Cape and Pantoja at 125. And to give you an idea how much I like that, fucking Clay Guida and Michael Johnson are probably going to beat the fuck out of each other in a barroom brawl that's just wild slop.
Man, that's going to be like a highlight reel type fight.
Clay some ugliness to that.
Any other way?
How could it possibly end any other way? Maybe he just holds Michael Johnson down. Michael Johnson has had porous takedown defense over time. It's what held back his UFC run, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. His ceiling was world champion, right? Like he could have been at that level.
But could it have been if your grappling's that bad?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is your ceiling world champion?
Well, didn't he become a wrestler?
Say again?
Wasn't he like some type of wrestler when he came in?
I mean, you see what the skills are. You know what I mean? The background is one thing, but you know, we can see what's happening. Man, I always love like watching Michael Johnson fight because you would see flashes of somebody who was much better than that. But it was like somebody who would be a champion. He would have been really good challenging like Pat Miletich for the title. You know what I mean? Like if he was around in like, no, seriously, like the Cal Uno days, he would have like, you know, probably hung better with that like early UFC, like Eve Edwards, Josh Thompson kind of run. But against these guys at 155, man, you know, it's rough ins, rough outs if you don't have the grappling.
Yeah. I mean, things evolve. You could say that with a lot of guys.
Things evolve, and you know, I feel like he always thought like I have the power, so that's going to be enough. But man, he's almost a 500 guy. Say again.
When you're knocking out Dustin Poirier and you rock Khabib, you lose, but you lose impressively against the pound for pound best fighter in the world. We
didn't know that at the time, though. We didn't know that. And for a long time, people pointed to him as like, oh, but Michael hurt him. You know what I mean? That was always like, well, he hasn't lost a round, but we saw him get pretty hurt against Michael Johnson, and we saw him lose the Khabib fight. No, just kidding.
He's a chop. Everyone always the fact that Chop rocked Floyd. They were like, he rocked Floyd though.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how I'm feeling about this card. I'm feeling positive, giving me some good stuff here, which is nice coming off of a drought to get something that's nice little succulent treat for the lips and tongue.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. We have great cards coming up next week. I kind of consider this week like the appetizer, but the beginning of the real boxing calendar and the real MMA calendar is actually next week. So tune in next week. We have a lot of great stuff to break down. We're going to get a lot of great news because whenever these press conferences come out, things pop up. So join us next week and enjoy this fight-filled card. It's going to be fantastic. Anything else for you, Joe? Anything you want to promote?
No, man. Follow me on Twitter, Joe Fanatics. I'm trying to get that moving. So follow me on Twitter there.
And like and subscribe our page. Like and subscribe us here on Facebook. On YouTube. Add us on our Facebook page at The Fighter's Block. And follow me on social media, J Rivas Comedy on Instagram and J Rivas on Facebook.
I love it. We'll see everybody here next week.
Peace out.